so good to see you all again. Here with us.
Don't be frightened. Look at this little scarecrow. Why is this cruel? He doesn't like humans too much. Now, take a while, sit down, and listen to the tales I have for you.
I know where Tony Copeland is. Written by Scarecrow. Narration by Jack Sanders and John Tsoukalos. I'm posting this because nobody on here knows me. My parents and my friends don't know I have an account. I'm leaving it here in public because I hope somebody is still looking for Tony C. Somebody older who has the resources to help him. Somebody with access to a few 100 pounds of military-grade explosives, maybe. It all started with two bored teenagers, a groundhog and a Go-Am. My best friend Randy had gotten a Go-Am for his birthday. If you haven't seen one, it's like a off-brand motorized constructor kit with a camera and a simple radio controller that you interface to a crappy phone app. We had spent the early afternoon tinkering with the kit in his parents' basement, making fun of the bad English in the app and trying to make it do jumps and climb the furniture. Then Randy had one of his brainwaves.
John,
He said,
I know what we're going to do today. We're going to make this thing go where no man has gone before.
So we're gonna roll it into Miss Rainey's house? We both had a good laugh, and then he got that look in his eye.
Even better, man. We're going to take it into the lair of the beast.
I had no idea what he meant.
You know that huge, fat groundhog that lives on the far side of the soccer field? I found the entrance to his burrow. A great, big, gargantuan groundhog hole. Probably full of treasure looted from Pineville. And we're going in.
Randy had just turned 15. But when he had his ideas, sometimes I would swear he hadn't aged mentally since he was 10. Our housing development is technically part of Pineville, Virginia, but our school and post office and everything is in Tanner. Downtown Pineville started dying in the 1960s when the highway went through a few miles away, and I don't think anybody still lives or works there. Randy and I configured his Go-Am into insect mode, using all 6 legs and 6 small motors. It would move slowly, but it should be able to handle just about any obstacle. When it was done, we headed out towards the field. We located the burrow without any trouble. It did look huge and old for a groundhog hole, like a family of some kind of ancient woodchuck nobility had dwelled there since time out of mind, ruling all the burrows for miles around. Randy put the machine down at the lip of the hole and pulled up the controller app.
4 bars. John, we're in business. You want the VR goggles?
Nah, this is your baby, I said. I'll watch on your phone screen.
You're lost, dude. Mankind's first venture into the black depths of the lair. You could have experienced it like you were right there.
I think back now to that golden late summer afternoon. I hope I'll always remember Randy, how he was then, before we found Tony C. The groundhog hole went almost straight down, past the roots of the long field grass and onto the heavy yellow-red clay below. Randy walked the little bot carefully down the steep slope. It reminded me of a brushed silver praying mantis with an oversized head. It was soon out of sight, so I bent closer to Randy's phone to watch the video feed. The tunnel leveled off. From the vantage point of the Go-Am, it looked like a spacious, rough-sided cavern. Clay and shale made dull brown and gray humps in the shadows, and the tiny flashlight mounted beside the camera, and pallid threads of deep roots hung like shreds of age-yellowed lace from the half-glimpsed ceiling above. Occasional drifts of fibers, bit of brown dead grass or animal hair, clung to the lower corners of the burrow. The tunnel went straight for a little while, then it branched. Randy brought the Go-Am to a halt. With the motor stopped, the mic was silent.
Left or right?
Randy whispered. With the goggles on, it must have felt like he was really down there in the cool, still darkness. His thumbs hovered over the controller. Looks like the left angle's up. Maybe to another entrance, I said. Let's go right. I bet it goes deeper. If only it steered us left, we may have never known. The right branch twisted, making it hard to see what was coming up. It slipped down and down through the mixed clay and rocks. No roots penetrated the walls in the branch. Even though we were at the edge of the woods where the trees reached deep into the earth, the floor was bare now. All signs of life in the surface world were gone, and the tunnel became rockier and more constricted. "How far down do you think we are now?" I asked.
3 feet, maybe? We should hit bedrock soon. It's close to the surface. They say that's why graves dug here in the 1800s before steam shovels were only about 3 feet deep, unless they blasted them deeper with dynamite.
The passage wound down into secret depths below the woods, narrowing more and more as we went. Eventually, the box legs began to scrape the sides of the tunnel. It couldn't have been more than 6 inches in diameter. That's when we saw it. In the slowly advancing beam of the flashlight, a smooth, grayish-yellow stone came into view. It looked about the size of an ostrich egg, and its surface was etched with delicate veins of darker gray.
Whoa!
Was all Randy said. He slowed down the body even further and began to crab walk it sideways around the stone.
It's not quartz.
He muttered as he gazed through the lens of the distant camera.
Not granite, and there's no marble in this area.
Randy's quiet narration of his thoughts ended in a sudden, gasping cry. I struggled to make out in the phone screen what the camera had revealed. On the far side of the stone was a living human face. What we thought was a smooth stone, we now realized was a skull, dry bone exposed to the air of the tunnel. But the face, it wasn't the desiccated face of a long-dead corpse. The skin was rosy and vital. It was the face of a boy with his eyes closed in sleep. 2 thin, pale cords ran beneath his eyelids. Around to the unseen back of his head, and where his hairline should have been, the skin gave way to exposed bone. I shrieked, dropped the phone, and scrambled back from the black tunnel mouth. Randy was throwing up and gasping and dry heaving.
What? What the? What? Oh!
Randy gave up trying to speak and waited until his body had finished voiding itself of what sounded like everything in his stomach and maybe even more. We looked at each other. We knew we had to look again to make sure what we saw was real and not some shared hallucination. We both moved slowly back towards the hole in the ground. As Randy fitted the goggles back around his head, I picked up his phone. He nodded to it. I was at the control of the bot now. He put the goggles on and I leaned over the screen. The light and camera were still trained on its face. It was almost perfectly still, save for a slight tremor of respiration in the nostrils. My vision swam and my stomach began to churn as I looked from the face's full, pale cheeks to the obscene sight of bare bone at the top of the forehead. I jumped when Randy spoke.
Show more.
He said in a distant tone.
Further down the body.
Fighting my instinct, I turned the GoM to look where the boy's torso should be. Something that might have been a dirty shirt or a flap of ragged skin began to resolve on the screen. I wanted to drop the controls and run, but the thing that appeared before the lens froze me. Randy won't talk about what we saw next. It moved slowly into view from the darkness beyond the narrow flashlight beam and stopped directly before the camera. There were human bones, some with skin, some with exposed muscles, and some with thin white cords wrapped around the bones that had no flesh. The thing moved slowly, and at the end of each bone was a glistening orb of the deepest blue. 2 of the orbs were cloudy, yet 3 of the others were still alive with black dots that swam in their depths, hardly moving yet never still. The thing in front of the camera was, or had once been, a human hand. At the tips of the fingers were eyes that seemed to reach straight through the camera to regard us through the machine. A soft, lisping sound came over the speakers. I looked at Randy. His teeth and fists were clenched. We were both sweating heavily. My hands were shaking, but I forced myself to hold onto the phone and move the controls. The sound came again louder, swelling into a saturating hiss. Haltingly, I turned the bot away from the hideous hand. I didn't want to see the source of the sound, but yet, I had to. I wish we had dropped our equipment at the moment and run for our lives, but neither of us did. As the bot jerked around, the face came into sudden, sharp focus. That was the moment we both recognized Tony Copeland. His picture had been plastered all over our neighborhood 2 summers ago. A boy a little younger than us in a horizontal striped shirt who had vanished in the Pineville woods. We watched that terribly familiar face as its mouth moved slowly, a mushy, croaky voice issuing from it.
Sweet Sam.
The voice wheezed.
Feels not, wakes and feels all, and crushed, and nibbled, consumed, lost.
The voice hitched. Then one of the eyelids fluttered.
You once say hello.
The awful voice teased us. That glimpse of the red ring of decay that lay behind the eyelids and the sick, pulsating white cord that issued from it shook us from our stupor. We threw everything down and ran in terror. That was 2 days ago. Randy has withdrawn. He hardly speaks to me now, just sits at his computer, searching and reading things he won't share with me. The light in his bedroom stays on all night. I know because mine does too. I can't tell anyone and I know. What if they believe me? What if they wake Tony up?